Welcome to Columbros, the podcast where bros talk about Columbo. On this episode, I had a rich uncle, but all I got was this stinking art degree. I'm Jeff Grubb. Joining me is Mike Minotti. Mike, how are you doing, Columbro?
I am doing fantastic. I hope I can be a rich uncle one day. I've got half of it down right now.
You got the uncle part. You got the uncle part. You just got to get the money.
Yeah, we're working on it.
If you
subscribe to our Patreon.
Thank you, because if you're listening to this early, you definitely have subscribed to our Patreon. If you are listening to it later, you can get these episodes earlier if you subscribe to the Patreon. We appreciate everybody who does do that, and we appreciate everybody who listens. It's been great so far. Really enjoying doing these. Mike, I thought I was going to have to do this episode that we're recording right now later in an evening after I was very, very busy. So I watched this episode while doing a walk in the woods.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, it was actually kind of pleasant because it's like, it's Columbo. You don't have to you don't have to pay super, super close attention. You know when the beats are going to matter. But I was watching and sort of just doing a leisurely pace through the woods. It was a good time. I really ended up enjoying this episode, Mike. Before we kind of get into the synopsis here, how did you find it?
No, I liked it. This is actually the first episode we've done that I had not seen already.
Okay, interesting.
So this was a first viewing for me, and I really liked it. This is suitable for framing the fourth episode of Columbo, not counting some of those pilots and whatnot that we haven't covered yet. Someday we'll maybe get to those. But yep, this is just a great concept. Throw Columbo into the world of art. Of course, that's going to be interesting. There are a lot of interesting things about this episode, Jeff. Even
tell me.
At the very beginning, again, I haven't seen every episode yet. This has to be the shortest time from start to murder in a Columbo episode, and if not the only one of the few instances where the victim has no lines.
Yes, yeah. Do we even see his face?
I don't even know if I think we see his face. I think we see his face.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We might just see him from the back even, but yes.
They definitely pan around him pretty quickly so we can see the murderer. And he, the old man, he looks nice. Looks like an old man. Well, again, we'll get into the synopsis here pretty soon, but you're right. It just kicks off with a literal bang and gets going, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the episodes where they take their time putting all the pieces into place. Obviously, there's a lot of fun in that. But just be like, oh, okay, no, hey, that guy just killed that guy. Look, how's this going to play out? That's also fun as well.
Yeah, it means we get a very Columbo-heavy episode of Columbo.
Exactly. So this episode obviously stars Peter Falk as Lieutenant Columbo. We get Ross Martin as Dale Kingston, who is our murderer. Edna Matthews is played by Kim Hunter. She will be a key accomplice. Let's see. Frank Simpson is Don Ameshi. This is a guy I recognize. He's been in a lot of stuff, but I'm having trouble placing exactly where. He is a lawyer for the family. And then Tracy O'Connor plays Rosanna Huffman. Rosanna Huffman plays Tracy O'Connor, who actually that might be the accomplice. I got it mixed up there. But there is a lot of great acting in this episode. I really like this cast.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun. I think, is it Kim Hunter, who's Edna Matthews, the kind of the divorced former wife?
The divorcee,
kind of an airhead, but a lot of a fun character.
Exactly,
kind of becomes pivotal in the end plot here. This is definitely a good cast. We have I think we complained the last episode, not one of the best dead weight, not a super memorable killer, not a great cast in this one. This one bounces back pretty hard with just a lot of interesting people involved in this case.
Yeah, it's got some really good, strong Columbo moments. It has, because the murder does kick off so fast, and the murder itself, the episode's called Suitable for Framing. So you know that there's a frame job coming up as well. And so you're kind of looking for where that's going to come into play.
Somehow, shit, Jeff, you just blew my mind. I just had a Phoenix Down moment. I was like, oh, yes, because about paintings. You're right. There's a giant framing that happens in this. That's cute.
Yes.
That's clever.
And it's one of those ones that has, an extra murder in there as well. So there's...
Yep.
It's like,
that
okay.
Accomplice might be too stupid to live, which is a reoccurring theme.
Yep. And that's so it keeps going. It keeps amping things up. And of course, I think that's a sign of a good Columbo episode where they keep raising the stakes and keep putting other pieces on the board.
And, just about the end, just real quick. One of my favorite gotchas, a really, really strong end
Yes.
for this episode.
Yeah, so we'll get there. So yeah, let's get into the synopsis. Obviously, this is in the world of art, but it's not necessarily how it starts. We start with an old man playing the piano in his room. He just kind of looks friendly, but he's just playing a Chopin piece by himself until we see that there is
chopping, my favorite.
Yes,
classical.
chopping. Yes, he's out there just chopping. A younger man who is, he apparently he's 40 years old. Well, I'm 40 years old. This guy looks much older than me, I'm gonna say.
Well, Jeff, they smoked a ton back
yes,
then.
it definitely
Don't
looks
worry.
like he smoked a ton and just his diet was just bourbon.
Yeah, that's just how it was back then.
Yes, exactly. But he's a younger man and he's wearing a tuxedo. He walks into the room and he looks at the guy playing the piano, exchanges nods with him, and pulls out a gun and fucking kills him. And that's it.
Just like that.
That's the murder. This is the reason that they're nodding at each other. This is that man's nephew who just killed him. And there we go. We're off to the races. This is Dale Kingston, who is the murderer. The nephew. He immediately takes the body. He moves it from where he killed him over to the wall near an outlet. He grabs an electric blanket and wraps up the body in this electric blanket to keep him. You can figure it out pretty quickly to keep the body warm. This is very important.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that work? Does that mess with time of death stuff?
Well, I think it would have worked back then. So we'll when the cop was telling everybody, like when he came in the room, he's like, the body was still warm. And so I think that helped the coroner just be like, oh yeah, so we'll just say that's a key piece of information. We'll just say that it must have died recently because if he was still warm. So yes, that in this show it worked. I imagine in the 70s something like that probably would have worked pretty easily. These days I have no idea, but I bet it does not work with the technology that they have.
Most things in Columbo and old detective movies or TV would not work today.
That's right. So then he's got to set up the crime scene a little bit. He kind of does his first, not really a frame job, but he does try to make it look like someone else did it, but no one in particular. He tampered. Well, maybe he was planning it this far ahead. Actually, now that I think about it, he tampers with the patio door. Kind of messes with that. And then he goes around the room and messes things up. He throws things on the floor in a rampage. There's mostly just him being he doesn't even have any emotion on his face. He just finds a book and throws it on the ground. It was a pretty funny scene, actually, Mike. I don't know. What do you think?
No, it was pretty good. The way he's methodically trying to trash a room, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty good stuff. And the whole time you're wondering, okay, so why is he missing with that in particular? Why is he doing this with this? And then really, there seem to be only two paintings he actually cares about.
Right. So he's taking some paintings out of the frames or whatever. He takes some paintings off the wall, but those
are frames. You're correct, Jeff.
Thank you. Yes, and then he got those two paintings that he was very he seemed to be keyed on, and he rolls those up, puts those away, and takes those with him. Let's see. We find out pretty quickly after this all gets wrapped up, and Dale Kingston meets up with his accomplice, who comes to the scene and shows up. And she's going to help him get the rest of this stuff figured out. But they talk a little bit about those paintings are worth $500,000. That's the big reason that he wants those paintings, or at least that seems like why he wants them.
Right. Well, it's hard to tell. And later on, it's like, okay, did he want it for that, or did he want it because it would help him with the framing later? Is really,
yes.
His real goal is the whole collection, is what he really wants.
Exactly. It takes a while for us to get there, but at the moment, you're like, okay, $500,000. I get it. So they need to wait to make sure that this this murder looks appropriate. They need to wait until the security guard who drives by the house every night at 11 p.m. does his drive-by, and that's when Tracy packs away the electric blanket. She fires the gun so that the security guard will hear the weapon get fired, and then she runs down the back path out of the house, down the gardens to get out of the way, but with just enough time so the security guard does see, or at least hears, that there were high heels, so he could hear that it was a woman. The security guard tries to follow after her, but can't find her.
Right. And this part's interesting because at first I thought it was like some really sloppy work by the killer that they were able to tell it was a woman. So it's interesting to find out a bit later. Oh, that's all part of the plan. He has a very specific person in mind for the framing here.
Exactly. These things are all playing into his plan. A big part of his plan as well is an alibi. At this point, Dale Kingston has long left the murder scene while the body's still warm under electric blankets so that he can line things up properly. He went to a local art exhibit for what he believes to be a hack artist. We find out Dale Kingston is something of a big-time art critic. He's on TV, in fact. People think he's a big deal, and he almost never shows up to these local art shows. So the fact that he's there is a big deal for the people, for the artists there. But he definitely is noticed because he is famous in this scene.
And we find out a little bit later, Jeff, but can you believe he tipped the valet $2 whole
$2. Yeah,
this is made
$2
to be like,
to park the car.
Wow, what a generous tip. Like, oh my, I mean, look, inflation jokes of a 70s show, haha, I know, but man, $2 was considered an incredibly generous tip. That's
of course, while he's at the party, I think he talks to the valet and says, "Hey, my watch isn't working. What time is it?" And then he talks to the artist. He's like, "Hey, my watch isn't working. What time is it?" "Oh, 5 minutes to 11. Interesting. And so clearly that puts him at the party right before 11. So that when the guard who always does a drive-by right at 11 discovers the body and says the body was still warm and I heard a gunshot, well, that could not have been him. He was somewhere else.
Yeah. For some reason, I like this schlub artist character too. He doesn't do a whole lot in here, but he made there's no small parts, Jeff, right? Only small actors.
Exactly.
He was very memorable to me.
So yeah, that's pretty much the setup. Are there any tidbits I'm missing there, Mike? I think that's most of like the elements.
I think you got it pretty good there, Jeffy boy.
All right, so then we get Columbo.
Jeffy bro, excuse me.
Columbo gets called into this, and he's gonna start asking around. He immediately suspicious, but I mean he does hear, oh, the body was warm when I arrived, all that stuff. So he doesn't necessarily know where to go with this stuff right away. He doesn't know, like, there's going to be some problems wrong with the crime scene eventually. He's not sure, though, what's going on here necessarily, though. Let's see.
Right. But when the killer does kind of re-enter the scene and he's like acting all shocked, you could kind of tell Columbo's good about this, often immediately seems suspicious of the right person.
Yes. So Dale Kingston comes back to this house. It's his uncle's house, but I believe if he doesn't live there, he visits there frequently. He's there enough. He arrives. He's informed about the murder. There are cops there waiting for him, and Columbo's there, and begins asking questions and stuff. And he does point out some inconsistencies with the crime. Why did the killer bother unframing cheaper paintings and ignoring other more before stumbling across the Degas works? And those are the two very important and expensive ones. But the killer who was clearly there to do this art crime was taking down these other ones, even though they seemed to know once they spotted the expensive ones that those are the ones worth taking. So that's a little bit weird. And then why only take those? This is kind of the first
time that Columbo almost kind of like exposes himself as actually knowing what he's doing to the killer, right? And the relationship here between Columbo and the killer is a little bit more interesting too, because there's not like that honeymoon period here. The killer seems to dislike Columbo immediately and doesn't do a whole ton to hide it throughout the episode.
Yes. It's also weird that the Columbo, that they broke in through the patio doors. It's like that's a weird way to come in. I don't necessarily know why, but he says pros always use windows, and if this was a pro, and clearly if they're taking the most expensive paintings, they would be the pro. They would go in through the window, and I can buy that to a certain extent. And this, at a certain point, the show could set up its own rules, and that makes sense for it to do that. Columbo also knows there were only 2 people in on the act to ensure they could bypass the alarm system, because the alarm has to be bypassed, and so this would always be a 2-person team. He even knows that one was a woman after the security guard confirmed that he heard high heels clip-clopping down the garden stairs. When he does mention that, Kingston seems very pleased that he thinks it's a woman. Yeah. So we're kind of pleased with that.
It's hard to tell if he's pleased that Columbo thinks it's a 2-person job necessarily, but happy about the woman assumption.
Yep. And now, of course, yeah, we're at a point where Columbo, doesn't have any proof to Ty Kingston, and he's got to go run all these things down, including the alibi. But you're right, already suspicious. Kind of looking around, could kind of get a good idea of what might have happened here.
And he's the guy with the best motive. He's this art critic, and he seems to be in line to, claim all this incredible art collection if this rich guy dies.
Right. So yes, and that's a key point. If the rich guy dies, he is going to inherit the art collection. He is this guy's next of kin. Even though he's the nephew, he is the next of kin. The old man is divorced. He doesn't have any kids. It's going to go to Dale Kingston. Now, Columbo's going to need to get to a point where he can prove a lot of this and look into it. So he checks on Kingston's art show alibi. He does have a good time trying to avoid looking at the nude model when he talks to the artist.
Model bit.
Yes.
It's very funny. The model seems to be very intrigued and interested in Columbo also.
Yes. She was kind of flirtatious with him. That was a good time. Let's see. Dale is doing his TV show where he talks about art, and he does these kind of lectures about art, maybe for something like a PBS station. And Columbo finds him there and talks to him while Dale is talking to Tracy, his accomplice, on the phone. And Tracy's not supposed to call him yet. She's definitely worried about it. And so Dale's got to do the whole thing like where, don't. They're very interesting, very good question, but I can't talk right now. And Columbo's like, hey, that could have been an important call. What's most likely to be happening right now is the person that stole those paintings is going to call you to try to get a ransom for those paintings. That's the most.
Columbo has already wired his home phones, I think.
Exactly.
In hopes of this.
He asked him, hey, that's the thing that's going to happen. So can I wire your phones? So when that person calls, we can trace them, we can track them, we can listen to them. And Dale agreed to that. He said, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously he felt weird about it, but what could he say? He had to say yes. But he's like, so he talks him down. He says, oh no, I get calls like that all the time. That was a nobody. But he's not been home. And Columbo makes a point of that. You haven't been home. So we haven't been able to listen to any of those calls. We've been trying to monitor them, and you haven't really been home to take any of them. And that's been frustrating. Obviously with with Tracy calling Dale and being uneasy, that's the big concern. It's like, oh, she's going to call me at home and I'm going to have to talk to her, and it's going to be very suspicious. So he's trying to avoid that. And he could not avoid it at work, but that line not tapped. Columbo hangs around and engineers access to Kingston's home so he can borrow some books on art. And he does that by, say, hey, I was going to swing by your place, and, and they have and Dale Kingston gets very defensive. He said, whatever, just take my key and go to my house. Whatever. I don't have anything to hide. And Columbo said, oh, please, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to do my job. But he does take the key, and he does go to his house to the point where he is waiting and sleeping in his home when Dale Kingston arrives there. I thought that bit was pretty good too. Mike, what do you think?
That was pretty good. But Dale was busy before he came back home. Maybe being ambitious here, Jeff, I think, because it's the classic. So he's meeting with Tracy to pick up those two paintings from her.
That's right.
It's like, oh yeah, it's great, I love you, blah blah blah, and then kills her, just smashes her head in with a rock. Man, it sure seems ambitious. Again, he's clearly suspected of murder and just killing somebody else now. But I guess maybe to him, Tracy is a giant liability at this point. She already called him when she wasn't supposed to.
Right.
She clearly knows. She knows that he killed this person. If there's a sign of trouble, why wouldn't she just turn him in? Now, this is why you shouldn't help people murder other people.
That's the one reason. Yes, exactly.
Right. It's funny. At first, I always like, oh, I don't like when women are killing me. For a second, I was like, oh, that was rough. Then I had to remember, wait a second. This woman is basically
right. She's not one of the innocent. Yes, exactly.
No, she sucks.
You're right. So he busy but this does kill the one link that would put him there at the crime. So for him, this is a very important thing to do to clean things up, and he's going to be in the clear. And as far as we're concerned as the audience, very likely now he is going to inherit that art collection.
And he stages it to look like a car accident.
Right, because he hits her in the head with a rock, so it could look like a car accident, because who knows what she hit her head on or whatever when she crashed.
Just went off a cliff, right?
It was just a terrible accident. He does take the paintings though, and because she has the paintings, she's been keeping them in the trunk of her car. He takes them and he takes them home, and when he does return home, he finds Columbo sleeping in his chair in the apartment. Columbo really plays up being confused. He says he dropped off to pick up some of those books. And he does. Columbo's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading some of these books. I fell asleep. But what do you got there?" And he's like, and Dale's like, at this point, he's like, "Oh, fuck. No, I am very tired. I don't have anything. I got some terrible paintings from some terrible painter." And Columbo's like, "Well, let me have a look." And he reaches in and he tries to grab it. And
very important that he reaches in and tries to grab it.
Yep. And Dale's like, "What are you?" No, absolutely pulls it away and does a pretty good job of looking like he's just offended that Columbo's in his house and he just wants to go to bed. But, Columbo reached in, tried to grab it, and that kind of ends things there. Columbo's like, "Oh, okay, all right," and ends up leaving.
No, it doesn't. He gets the phone call.
That's right. He gets the phone call while he's there. Yes, yeah.
I love this.
Yes.
I love this in old shows and movies where like people get phone calls when they're at people's houses because they give people that number.
Right. He's like, "I'm going to be there. So if you need to get a hold of me," and like, I suppose that's just what you had to do back then. Yeah.
He just had to do that. Right. Because, like the killer picks up the phone and he's like, "Oh, it's for you, Columbo." Doesn't even seem that surprised by it.
Yeah. I kind of want to talk to my parents and be like, "Did that really happen that frequently?" That might have been like a TV show contrivance, but whatever. Columbo does get a call. And he gets called because someone's dead, and it turns out there's an art student who was in a car accident, and she is no longer living. And that, of course, is Tracy.
That is what being dead means usually.
That is typically what it means. And it's definitely they confirmed it here. Yes,
I love this because this is the part that makes Columbo look brilliant. He mentions like, "Yeah, I told him, down at the force, alert me of any crimes, any deaths that are related to art," right? Like normally this is not something he would be immediately alerted to, but he's smart enough to be like, "Hey, anything happens that's related to the art world whatsoever, you let me know." So this art student dies in a car accident. Doesn't even maybe immediately seem suspicious. He finds out about it right away.
So he looks into that, but he also meets Edna. And Edna now is the divorcee. She is the one that was once married to the murder victim, the first murder victim. And he tries to get a reading on her, and he quickly figures out this is a harmless person. She almost certainly didn't do this. But this is when he also finds out that the murder victim changed his will. This is all happening at the will reading, of course. This is like how he meets her. It turns out Dale is not going to inherit the art, and that it really shakes things up. This is what kind of puts Columbo on his back foot a little bit, because he's operating, maybe as far as we're concerned, rightfully so, that the biggest motivator here would be who's going to inherit the artwork. If it's Dale, then he has every reason or every intention to kill this person to acquire that art. Now that changes the calculus a little bit, and Dale makes a big point of saying that you thought you were on to me because I was going to inherit everything, and I knew I wasn't. I've known for 10 days, so clearly like that the motivator wasn't there before he died. So why would I have done it? Yeah.
Right. Although it does kind of let slip. Well, hey, it's interesting that Dale knew about this now for a while, that he suddenly wasn't the heir anymore.
Right. Exactly. And, you would think revenge would be a motivator, but, it does change things enough that Columbo needs to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Dale tells him to go find the real killer, of course, while kind of hissing that at Columbo. There's more twists and turns to come, though. The murder weapon, the gun that got fired, was planted by Dale and found near Edna's house. That's interesting. In a place where she says that she walks frequently. Paper, the paper the stolen painting was wrapped in is found in her bin, in her trash bin. Things are looking bad for her, obviously, says Dale Kingston. And Columbo agrees, but maintains his belief that she's innocent. This makes Dale go kind of mad a little bit. He's like, "Well, maybe you should search your house to double check and clear her name because I'm worried about her. And Columbo's like, no, I'm good. I'm
I
good.
love this. Like Columbo literally says, like, "Why? We both think she's innocent."
Yeah.
It's what he says, and you can just see Dale being infuriated that Columbo won't take like the bait here.
Yes, and so he like is getting increasingly desperate, and at this point, I'm like, well, it couldn't be more obvious. But I think Dale recognizes it's not about looking innocent to Columbo anymore. It is about like what can be proven, and he wants to have things be proven against her, and that would almost make it impossible for him to have done anything, and that's what he really cares about. Most importantly, though, and this is something that gets will get brought up soon. If she does get to be found guilty of this murder, she cannot inherit the art from him, because if you commit a crime, and this is a point that gets brought up in that the movie, the mystery movie that just came out a few years ago.
Glass Onion?
Yeah, the one before that. Yes, James Bond.
Knives Out.
Yes. What is it?
Knives Out.
Knives Out. Thank you. Yes.
Knives Out.
So
Thank
Knives
you,
Out.
Christian.
Yes. Thank you very much, Christian. That is a big plot point there, where if the murderer is the person that was going to inherit everything, they can't inherit it. So if you try to frame someone for that is a good way to like get the stuff if you are next in line, where Dale obviously is. So that's the big play he's trying to make here. He's trying to make it look like Edna did the crime. He frames her up so that the person who owns the art is dead. Edna can't inherit it. He gets the big thing. He's not getting anywhere with Columbo, though, right? Columbo is just not having any of it, and so Dale's kind of in a pickle.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Here, so he then kind of has to change course a little bit here, and he has to convince the lawyer and the ex-wife that this is a great idea, just in case, because it looks bad for her. So let's just ease their suspicions. Let's just invite the police. Let's go kind of over Columbo's head here and just go to the police directly and get them involved and have them search the house.
Right, and he sets things up so that she is out, and he's able to kind of get the paintings into her house so that they will be found. And that would seal the deal as far as anyone's concerned, at least in the belief of Dale Kingston. So the police do show up at her house, and it's not Columbo. It's a whole other set of police. The lawyer says he's got friends down at City Hall, like they always say in TV shows like this. And
Yes.
And these cops are like, okay, we're going to look in here. And Edna's still not happy about this. She's like, this seems bad. It seems like unnecessary. And
Dale, but like more confused and almost like out of her element.
Right.
He's clearly being manipulated.
Yes.
Clearly like this poor innocent thing.
Right, exactly. And Dale keeps singing the song about this will just be the best thing for you. It'll have your name cleared on the record, and you'll be good. Columbo does show up eventually, though. He's like, I just heard about all this. What's going on here? And Dale's like, well, you should just go home. And Columbo's like, no, that would look bad. I'm going to hang around. And say, okay. All right, well, let's see.
So this whole last act, Columbo is so good.
Yes, so
God.
this is like really the him in his element now. The police find the paintings. They bring it in the room. And Dale's got to do the whole thing of like, Edna, how could you?
How could you?
Yeah. Oh my God, this is terrible. I can't believe she's done it. And the things change pretty quickly. Like the tone of the cops change, where it's like they look over to Columbo, and Columbo's like, yeah, let's start the show, basically.
Clearly, Columbo's still in charge here, actually.
Yes. And I forget how it goes exactly. Like, does like Columbo bring up, he's like, I think you framed her? Is that how he says it? Or
They immediately start dusting for prints on the painting.
That's
And
right.
Look, we saw Dale clearly had his fingerprints all over the painting when he was putting them in there at the time. I thought, well, that's really stupid. So they immediately start dusting for prints, and it's clear what he's looking for. He's looking for, he must be looking for Dale's prints. And Dale says, that won't prove anything. I've touched that painting a million times. I took care of that art collection. And I was like, oh, okay. And then Columbus says, no, they're not looking for your prints. They're looking for mine. I know when I was at your house, I reached inside of your bag there, and I touched those paintings, whatever was in there. So if my fingerprints are on these paintings, it links them directly to you. That blew my mind.
Yes.
That is that this is such a incredible
Well,
gotcha.
it just
and
gets better, right?
it gets better. It gets better because then Dale freaks out because they find Columbus Prince. He's like, "Oh, you could have touched them right now when I was looking. You could have touched them right here." Then Columbo, with the greatest look in his face ever, lifts up his hands. Gloves.
He's been wearing gloves the whole time, and it's such a good. It's a great moment. Yeah, because he just says, "I'm wearing gloves," like this. Puts his hands up right in front of his face, palms up. Like I couldn't have done those prints right now because he predicted everything. He set this up with the cops. He knew Dale's moves. He spotted like what he was trying to do. He's like, well, if I was in this situation, how would I pull this off? Put the paintings in her house. So, hey, he's like, obviously at a certain point, Columbus got to be like, I hope I was touching those paintings, but he knew that the accomplice was killed right at that moment, and he comes home with paintings. Those are probably
he
it.
Doesn't want Columbo to see, right?
Exactly. So all of those pieces fit so nicely together. That moment really was sweet.
Of course, the episode ends right then because it's Columbo, right?
Yes, exactly. You're right. Before that, Dale's, he is still holding on like these killers often do, and we don't get the I did it, Columbo, that sort of thing. Or, man, I can't believe you caught me. That one just pulls the plug. It's over. Because really, it doesn't get any better than that moment of him pulling the hands out with the gloves. So,
no, it is just an all-time great got you moment here. Incredible stuff. What a super fun end in this episode.
Yeah. So I really like this episode, Mike. I had a very good time with this. I think everyone was on their A game. I think the writing was really well done. I thought the mystery, or the setup and the how catch-emness of a Columbo episode was really excellent here. And I think Columbo, like when he does his one more things are very good, but this is maybe my favorite so far of the 4 episodes of a top tier Columbo moment of him pulling out the hands with the gloves. So yeah, really, really enjoyed myself with this one. How about you?
No, exactly the same. Incredible cast, really, really fun. Howdy done and stuff. Incredible ending. Really just fun concept. Columbo in the art world makes a ton of sense because in some ways he's schlubby, but then like in a lot of these instances where he enters these areas, he quickly does his homework and learns enough that he is able to kind of navigate around this intricate, sophisticated world. And God, it just is clearly so many steps ahead of the killer at multiple times. It's a ton of fun. This is I've seen a lot of episodes kind of after this. I know we're not going to talk about those yet, but this is still probably one of the best I've seen. This is a very good episode.
Yep. Really, really enjoyed this one. So let's do our ranking of killers. So far, we've had 3 episodes. We have the killer from Murder by the Book at number 1. That's the first episode, a very good one. Death Lends a Hand at number 2, and Deadweight's Killer at number 3. So for suitable for framing, Mike, where are you going to place it?
So, like as an episode, I think that it's the best gotcha. Definitely.
Yes.
I definitely like it more. I think I definitely like it more than the second episode, which the name is forgetting me now. But
Death Lends a Hand,
which was a very good. Death Lends a Hand, which was a very good episode, very good killer. My problem with that one was largely I didn't like that Columbo basically had to plant evidence to convict him at the end. It kind of made Columbo looked a little bit inept. I don't know if I could quite say I like this more than the first episode.
I think it gives it a run for its money.
Gives it a run for its money, and again, the ending is better. It's a much better gotcha. But man, I don't know because it's surprisingly close for me. I thought that Murder by the Book would have a pretty comfortable lead for a long time. I'm surprised that I'm already considering dethroning it.
Yeah, I'm happy with putting it at 2 for right now as an episode. But yeah. I think no, okay. Actually, here's how I feel, Mike. I would actually put this episode at number 1, and I would still keep the killer from the first episode at number 1 for killers.
No, that's right. Yeah, we're talking about killers. That's absolutely right. The killer from the first one is incredible. This killer almost seems a little bit out of his league. At first, it almost seems like he's doing sloppier work than he really is.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. So, and then ranking of killers, we got this. So we got Dale Kingston at number 1 right now. Okay.
Yeah. Wait. Ranking of killers. Dale Kingston's number one, or is it the episodes number one?
So we're going to do both. So we have two lists. So we have the ranking of episodes suitable for framing is. Oh, you're right. That's I think that's. I got it mixed up now. Yes. So
you said you want to do the killer from this episode number 2.
Yes, that's right. So for this episode's number 1, the killer's number 2. Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
That's exactly right. So suitable for framing, Murder by the Book, Death Lends a Hand, Dead Weight. That is the ranking of episodes, and then the killers. It's I can't remember his name now, but the killer from Murder by the Book still number 1. Dale Kingston number 2.
Like it. I like it.
Me too.
Good stuff.
All right, Columbro. Any other final thoughts for this episode?
No, just very good stuff. We're a bit over halfway through that first season. And now our next episode is going to be Lady in Waiting. So that should be some exciting stuff here. We'll see how that one is going to rake next month.
And if you are listening to this episode and you haven't watched this episode of Columbo for some reason, this full episode is available online. If you go to the columbofile.com website, which thanks to them for helping out with the rundown tonight.
Yes.
I didn't have a chance to do notes.
PH, not F.
Yes,
file.
yes. Columbo file, as in someone who likes to have sex with Columbo. Yes, it is. You go to the full episode list, and it should be right there, suitable for framing. So you can watch it right there online without any problem, and not without a subscription as well. All right, that's going to do it. We're going to get out of here. Mike, thanks so much for hanging out with me talking about Columbo. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, bro. Till next time. To all the Columbros out there. See you then.
Hey.
One more thing.